The night of the 22nd and 23rd of July, 1944. Soldiers of the Red Army come upon Majdanek, the first major Nazi camp to be liberated, located in German-occupied Poland. This event becomes one of the most significant moments in the history of World War II and the Holocaust, as only after the liberation of the concentration camps, the full extent of Nazi crimes is finally exposed to the world. Soviet officials invite journalists to inspect the camp and to see for themselves the evidence of the horrors that have occurred there. As Allied troops move across Europe against Nazi Germany in 1944 and 1945, they encounter concentration camps, mass graves, and other sites of Nazi crimes. Among them is Auschwitz, the largest of the extermination centers located in German-occupied Poland, which the Soviet forces liberate on the 27th of January, 1945. It is estimated that a minimum of 1.3 million people were deported to this camp between 1940 and 1945, and of these, at least 1.1 million were murdered. One of the perpetrators responsible for these atrocities is Anton Thumann. Anton Thumann was born on the 31st of October 1912 in Pfaffenhofen an der Ilm, then part of the German Empire. Thumann was trained as a carpenter, but after completing his training, he was not able to find a job and was unemployed from 1928 to 1932. From 1930 to 1933, Germany faced a grim reality. The global economic depression had devastated the country, leaving millions without work. The widespread unemployment, coupled with the national humiliation following World War I, fueled public discontent. Many Germans saw the parliamentary government as weak and ineffective in addressing the crisis. The economic misery, fear of a worsening future, and frustration with the government's apparent failure to manage the situation created a fertile ground for Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party's rise. The Nazis promised to restore German cultural values, overturn the Treaty of Versailles, counter the perceived communist threat, provide employment, and return Germany to its rightful position as a global power. Anton Thumann was among the millions of Germans who believed that Hitler was Germany's only hope, and in April 1932 he joined the SS. On the 30th of January 1933, Adolf Hitler was appointed Chancellor of Germany by President Paul von Hindenburg, and in May of the same year, Thumann became a member of the Nazi Party. He then served as a guard at Dachau, the first regular concentration camp established by the Nazi government in March 1933, less than 2 months after Hitler became the Chancellor. Thumann worked as an ordinary guard until 1937, and then moved to the commander's office. In August 1939, Thumann got married. The marriage produced one daughter, and the family lived in Dachau. The Second World War started on the 1st of September 1939 when Nazi Germany invaded Poland. In 1940, Thumann became a protective custody camp leader, and in this role he amassed considerable power as he was in charge of running the actual inmate camp and thus controlling the prisoners. This also included the responsibility for maintaining order, discipline, and administering punishments. From August 1940, Thumann was stationed at Groß-Rosen, which at that time was still a subcamp of the Sachsenhausen concentration camp. In early May 1941, under Camp Commandant Arthur Rödel, Thumann became the protective custody camp leader of the now independent Groß-Rosen concentration camp. Though during his early years as a guard, Thumann treated the prisoners moderately, he eventually adapted to the much crueler behavior of his colleagues. By the time he arrived at Groß-Rosen, he had turned into a cruel and twisted sadist. Thumann would beat prisoners with a whip, and when they fell to the ground, he would set his wolfhound on them. He struck prisoners with a crowbar or stick and set the dog upon them during work or while they carried soil in carts. He was cruel towards prisoners, especially during roll calls, and the inmates he punched were obediently finished off by the capos. The capos were prisoners selected by the SS to supervise other inmates and received better food, clothing, and housing. They had a reputation for being brutal supervisors, often beating, denouncing, and even killing their fellow prisoners. From mid-February 1943, Thumann began service as protective custody camp leader at the Majdanek concentration camp. Here, he would become close friends with another sadistic Nazi officer, Erich Musfeld, and together they would carry out weekly selections. Musfeld and Thumann were among those responsible for carrying out an operation codenamed Operation Harvest Festival. In late October 1943, Jewish laborers were ordered to dig trenches, allegedly for air defense. However, the inmates did not know that they were digging their own mass graves. Approximately 43,000 Jews were murdered at the Majdanek, Poniatowa, and Travniki concentration camps between the 3rd and 4th of November 1943. The Jewish prisoners were ordered to strip naked and walk into the previously dug trenches, where they were subsequently shot. Loud music was played to cover the sound of gunfire. Operation Harvest Festival was carried out after several uprisings by Jewish prisoners under the direct orders of Heinrich Himmler, the head of the SS. It became the largest single massacre of Jews carried out by German forces during the Holocaust. When it was all over, Musfeld and Thumann were commanding and shoving prisoners into a hole, while the radio in the background played a waltz. Both Musfeld and Thumann came to Majdanek with their wives and families, and Thumann's wife in particular treated the prisoners as cruelly as her husband did. When the exhausted prisoners went to work, Thumann's wife would step out onto the balcony with her rifle and shoot at anyone she chose. Inmates often warned each other, saying, "Be careful, Mrs. Thumann is hunting." Anton Thumann often walked around the camp with his German shepherd dog, which the prisoners called the head doctor, because it often decided if a man would live or die. If the dog snarled at a prisoner without any apparent reason, Thumann would instantly sentence that man to death. As Thumann paced along the rows in silence, he pointed his whip at prisoners, sometimes selecting 5 standing next to each other, and other times picking them from different rows. No one knew where to stand to avoid being chosen. Those he pointed at with his bullwhip were sent to the gas chambers. During one selection, around May 1943, Thumann picked and then beat a prisoner named Hering, a political activist from Warsaw who was a cripple and walked bent over at a 75-degree angle, claiming Hering gave him a vengeful look. After severely beating the disabled man, Thumann subsequently had him sent to the gas chamber. During his time at Majdanek, Thumann was involved in committing the most sadistic atrocities against the prisoners. In March 1944, an SS woman led 2 female inmates past the fields, where they usually worked. When they tried to enter through the gate, the SS woman told them to keep walking. The older woman of the 2, sensing they were heading to the crematorium, started crying. The younger woman, in a rage, attacked the SS woman, trying to grab her revolver. A fierce struggle broke out, and the SS woman managed to throw the revolver behind a wire fence and then began to flee. Thumann, watching the entire scene from his horse, unleashed his dog on the younger woman, who also started running. Escape was impossible, due to the wire on all sides, and the dog quickly caught her and brought her down. SS men rushed out of the blockhouse as the alarm siren blared. They captured the younger woman and took her to a sentry box, where they beat her with bullwhips. When a car with a red cross arrived, both women were forcibly loaded into it and taken to the crematorium. At the crematorium, Thumann ordered both women to undress. The older woman complied, and after being hit on the head with a baton and being rendered unconscious, she was thrown into the furnace. Because the younger woman refused to undress, she was thrown to the ground and severely beaten by the guards. She was warned that if she did not undress, she would be burnt alive. Because she refused, on Thumann's order, 4 stokers grabbed her and threw her into the burning furnace as she screamed in agony. Due to his cruel tendencies and participation in selections, gassings, and shootings, the prisoners gave Thumann the nickname Hangman of Majdanek. For a few weeks between March and April 1944, Thumann was at Auschwitz-Birkenau, although he never officially held a position there. Rudolf Hess, the longest-serving commandant of Auschwitz, even invited Thumann to his farewell in Solehütte, a resort used by SS officers for relaxation, located about 30 kilometers from Auschwitz. In mid-April 1944, Thumann arrived at Neuengamme concentration camp, and due to his reputation as a vicious tyrant, he was feared by all the inmates. For the slightest offense, Thumann would kick, beat, or set his dog on the prisoners. For instance, it was enough if an inmate smudged a number, stood unevenly during roll call, or failed to remove their cap when he passed by. When Thumann wanted to punish a prisoner, he would take them to his quarters, the guardhouse, or the porter's lodge, and personally administer 25 to 50 lashes with a rubber baton. Sometimes, simply passing an inmate who did not appeal to him would be sufficient reason for Thumann to strike him on the head and face. Towards the very end of the war, as the British Army was closing in on Neuengamme, Thumann was involved in the mass murder of 71 resistance fighters. Between the 21st and 23rd of April 1945, along with several guards, he had most of them hanged. The prisoners were forced to strip naked before being hanged on nooses that operated like a conveyor belt. 7 inmates foresaw Thumann's plan and resisted, managing to seize his revolver. In response, the guards shot 3 prisoners with their revolvers, but the remaining 4 could not be subdued. Thumann then ordered hand grenades, which he personally threw into the shelter. 2 walls of the shelter were blown apart, and the inmates were blown to pieces. During the cleanup of the shelter, a woman who had been overlooked was found hiding among the corpses. Thumann then personally killed her with a shovel. Under Thumann's command, the last 700 prisoners remaining at Neuengamme were forced to dispose of bodies and cover up the traces of the camp. On the 30th of April 1945, the prisoners were sent on a death march to Flensburg, located almost 200 kilometers away on the border with Denmark. After the war, Thumann was arrested and put on trial before a British military tribunal in Hamburg. Along with 13 other defendants, he was charged with participating in war crimes at the Neuengamme concentration camp. The court found 11 of the 14 defendants, including Thumann, guilty, and sentenced them to death by hanging. Anton Thumann was 33 years old when the British executioner Albert Pierrepoint carried out the sentence on the 8th of October 1946. There were no tears shed for Anton Thumann.
Thanks for watching the World History Channel. Be sure to like and subscribe, and click the bell notification icon so you don't miss our next episodes. We thank you, and we'll see you next time on the channel.